Hi, this is Kurt with Friendly DevOps, and unfortunately parts of this video were corrupted, so I'll be adding a few dubs to complete my thoughts. I'm back with another hot take, this time on AI. I'm not particularly enamored by it. I don't think it's the greatest next thing. I also don't believe in the doom and gloom some people are saying. I also don't believe that it's not significant, and I don't believe it's going to take everyone's job. But I'm also realistic and understand there will be many jobs affected by it. And so I'm just trying to add my 2 cents and hopefully have a more sobering conversation about the impacts AI will have on jobs in the future.
Those whose jobs are in the creative fields, or for those whose jobs are writing in general, I believe this is where AI is going to have the greatest impact. For screenwriters, copywriters, voice actors, illustrators, animators, those are the professions that are going to have the greatest impact from AI's implementation. Now, with that being said, there's going to be a lot of mistakes generated from AI because AI,
Or specifically, the generative models we are currently using produces outputs by determining what the most statistically relevant next token is based on the user's prompts. If either the training data contains a large enough amount of incorrect data or doesn't contain any data relevant to the user's prompt, the model will produce erroneous results. This is referred to as hallucinations. To further complicate the issue, due to generative AI being a mechanism for generating outputs based on probabilities, the greater the context size provided by the user increases the likelihood that the generated response will contain errors.
so for that reason, there's going to be the need for human to be able to catch those errors and either reprompt or adjust those errors themselves. This will lead to a growth in the positions of editors within whatever company, whatever role they previously had. Now, this increase in the role of editors will not be enough to supplant the job losses within that creative field. So, as AI becomes more reliable, these jobs are the most likely, in my opinion, to have a severe impact on them. Now, to talk about the reliability of AI or the improvements on AI, we are reaching a plateau as far as the improvements are concerned. Now, I'm not saying that we have plateaued, and I'm not saying that we won't see considerable improvements in the future. But the improvement that we saw between ChatGPT 2.0 and GPT-4, I don't think will be replicated again. And there's two reasons for that. One is that our paradigm for machine learning, I think, is reaching the maximum of what it's capable of producing. And the second is the gains that we are making in GPUs are now no longer as substantial. And one of the primary reasons for that is the shrinking of dies in lithography is slowing down. If you pay attention to the die sizes over the years, you will notice that we have not really been shrinking dies at the same rate that we had been within the early 2000s and the 2010s. So the method that GPUs are now using to be more performant is by leveraging more power. And that can be observed in the difference between the NVIDIA's 40 series and 50 series, where the dies are relatively the same, but the power consumption has been increased dramatically. As for its impact on software engineering, I do not see it having as great an impact on senior developers as some are claiming, how AI is going to start producing applications completely onto itself. That is only true if you perceive being a developer as writing code or adding components into existing code, where that is far from the truth. What it is to be a developer, especially a senior developer and up, is that you're a problem solver. You are capable of taking multiple requirements and then fashioning a solution to those requests and requirements. Now, because there are an abundance of ways to solve one problem within computer engineering, That means that there's a lot of nuance in fulfilling requirements that AI has yet to demonstrate. And for that reason, I do not believe that senior developers have anything to fear from AI. What I do foresee is that a lot of tasks that were originally delegated to junior developers in order to familiarize them with the code base and to build up their skills will now be delegated to AI. To facilitate this, I believe that developers will have to make code that can more easily be refactored. As one of the reasons for having complex code that is highly abstracted is to make it easier for junior developers to fulfill their task while knowing very little about the code base they're interacting with. With AI, this reason will no longer be relevant. The ultimate result of this, I believe, will have the computer engineering profession return to a state that was more akin to what it was in the 80s. From what I hear, because I was only a baby during that period of time. But the majority of developers were hobbyists, people who did code in their spare time, and only a fraction of that were people who exclusively did coding and programming at, within their job.
Now, another aspect that is tangential to AI, where there have been claims of eliminating jobs, is robotics. There are claims that recent innovation in robotics combined with AI will make most, if not all, factory jobs irrelevant. I personally don't foresee this coming to pass in the near to medium future. Most people have been conditioned to believe that machines are more durable than living organisms. In terms of direct and immediate impact, that can be true. But in terms of durability, machines pale in comparison to people. The average lifespan of machines are 10 to 30 years. The average lifespan of a person is from 60 to 100 years.
The reason for this is that as organic beings, we have maintenance built into us naturally, whereas machines have to have maintenance done to them. And while people will point out that there are machines that have lasted hundreds of years, that is because they have a high level of maintenance applied to them. Whole components of that machine have been replaced. Now, one of the greatest issues with replacing humans with machines is the level of dexterity that humans have that machines cannot replicate. And for a machine to be able to replicate the level of dexterity that a human is capable of, it will lead to extreme complexity, which leads to higher levels of degradation, higher levels of failure, and increased frequency and cost of maintenance.
I have worked in manufacturing for the majority of my adult life. On many occasions, management excitedly brought on a new wonder machine that would reduce costs, increase productivity, and potentially eliminate redundant roles. And in the majority of the cases, after several months, the machine would experience multiple breakdowns in the course of regular usage, and after a time, a critical component needed for operation of the machine, which was not calculated into the operating cost, would be needed to complete a repair. It is at this point where the machine would be abandoned in the maintenance shop, and the factory would return to using the previous workflow that the new machine was intended to replace.
So, in positions like food packaging or other factory jobs that require the same level of dexterity, the question of whether or not a robot will be able to replace them, it comes down to whether or not it's economically viable to replace that person with a robot. And in the overwhelming majority of cases, that answer is no. Now, with that said, there is a position within warehousing that will be eliminated because of AI, and that is material handling. Due to the abundance and cheap price of high definition optical sensors, the cheap price of single board computers and daughter boards, and the ubiquity of Wi Fi, and the relatively cheap price of GPUs, creating automated vehicles capable of gathering materials from within a warehouse and bringing it to the floor to be utilized on the lines, or taking finished product and warehousing it, or filling a trailer with finished product will be quite easy to achieve. Previously, when a company wanted to automate their racking system and their material handling system, they had to have complex systems. They had to have dedicated racking. They had to paint lines on their floor for the machines to be able to travel and follow. And now none of that is necessary with the level of complexity that an autonomous vehicle is capable of achieving today. And since most companies lease their equipment rather than purchase them, this will lead to a fast rollout of autonomous material handlers. Now, for logistics outside of a company, I don't believe the current level of autonomous vehicles will have a safety level that would make it acceptable for people to allow fully autonomous vehicles on the same roads as people. This does not mean that fully autonomous vehicles will not be taking the jobs of logistic professionals and truck drivers. The easiest way for autonomous vehicles to be implemented for the purposes of logistics would simply be to legislate it into existence. And what I mean is by creating autonomous vehicle only roads. And this could be quite easily achieved by converting already existing roads into autonomous vehicle only roads. Now, this most likely will not be implemented within cities, but I see this as a replacement for transporting goods in our current highway and railway system. In the same manner in which we have rail yards in which trucks will come and receive trailers, I perceive we will have autonomous trailer yards in which autonomously driven trailers will park and have human driven trucks pick them up for final delivery to the store or locate or final destination. And the reason I have this belief is because this is already a discussion about utilizing the highway systems as they exist today. And I believe the greatest impediment to moving forward with that would be the interactions of autonomous vehicles with regular human driven vehicles. And that's why I perceive that they will legislate into existence autonomous only vehicle roads to resolve that issue. Because of this, I can foresee a future in which all long haul transportation of trailers will be done by autonomous vehicles, while local transportation will be done by human controlled vehicles. And I understand that most truck drivers will not be happy with this if it were to come to pass, seeing as long hauling is the most lucrative form of truck driving. But the greater populace I foresee will be hailing this as a great
Innovation.
as they will no longer have to compete with tractor trailers on the highway. Now, I haven't addressed all the aspects of our working life that will be affected by AI, but these are my predictions based off of the information and experiences I've had. So, if you would like to join in the conversation, I would like to hear from you in the chat. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please leave a like and subscribe. Take care.